we're back again, and it's just about summer here, and we've got a little bit of fall moving in. And I don't know if you noticed anything unusual about this time lapse, but we're looking to the southwest. Most of our time lapses are to the south or to the west, and we see the cirrus moving east to west. So we've got our tropical easterlies affecting Texas here. So we'll check that out on the upper air chart. Maybe I can bring that up real quick here, but quick look outside. A little bit of cumulus redeveloped there, and we know that the upper level clouds up there are moving east to west. Let's see if we can bring that up here. And I'm just going to go straight to that 250 millibar chart. Had some problems that UCAR couldn't load their upper air charts. I don't know if you all have noticed that problem too, but I'm going to go to the GFS here and bring this up. Okay, so this is the 200 millibar analysis, and this is going to be, well, maybe a little bit above the level of where the cirrus is. However, looks like we have a upper level low somewhere over south of Houston, and that puts North Texas here under the easterly flow. Let me see if I can bring up the 300 millibar chart too. Hopefully that doesn't kill our connection, but we'll see if we can bring that up. And we see northeasterly flow there. Now normally we're going to find a high pressure area aloft over tropical systems out in the Gulf, because we do have Cindy out there, and normally you find those highs up around 250, 200 and above. So I'm not too sure if that's associated with Cindy. I haven't looked at the weather data too much, but we'll try to find out here very shortly. Part of what I do here is look at the weather from scratch, kind of like sitting down and gathering up all the charts and coming on shift, and that's really the best way to learn forecasting, I think, rather than me getting fully prepared and then jumping in here and rattling off what's going on. Let's check out NHT, what they've got for Cindy. Let's see. Had one of their products up. Yeah, there it is. Track taking it onto the Texas coast around Beaumont, Port Arthur. So yeah, there it is coming in for Thursday. So it looks like we've got very slow movement, maybe a slight westerly drift, and then we see that coming into East Texas. So we're kind of on the threshold here of North and East Texas, so maybe some good time lapse for Thursday. And then that'll move up into Arkansas Friday around Memphis, and we should see that carry a lot of precipitable water inland, and that means a lot of scattered broken showers and thunderstorms across the lower Mississippi Valley. Okay, I see Lloyd reporting audio is fine. That's good to hear. Okay, looks good. And Jim reporting another lovely day in Phoenix, and yeah, we've got that going on there. Here's the high temperatures for today for the southwest, and we can see 119 degrees there at Phoenix and 125 at Needles. Snoopy's brother Spike living there, and just north of there, Laughlin, Bullhead City, 122, and 117 very abnormal for Las Vegas. And I know up to 1990 their all-time high was 111, and we're way above that today. Also Tucson, I think for a while the all-time high was about 115. We're above that there. And near the Salton Sea, 122 degrees there at Thermal, and 120 at I think that's Imperial there, south of the lake. I wonder about those guys at that little homeless city out on the East Coast. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. Let me go out and check that out. Yeah, you go out to the Salton Sea, and I don't know how many of you played Grand Theft Auto, but there's a town there that's a spitting copy of sandy shores right there, Salton City. Then you go on the other side, and there's this town. I don't know. Let's see. It's somewhere around here. Let me see if I can bring that up. Yeah, it's somewhere in this area, but basically people that are wanting to live off the grid, and a lot of homeless people, they end up there, and I imagine this is probably pretty brutal for those guys out there. Let me just take one more quick look and see if I can find where that is. I'm in the right general area here, and I'm sure a few of you have probably heard of this place. I don't know. It's pretty identifiable by the painted rocks that they have in that little town there. Okay, one more shot, and then we'll move on. Okay, well, anyway, it's out there. Right in that area, probably 120 degrees there. Back up to the Gulf, Tropical Storm Cindy. We've got 45, I think the last observation, 45 miles an hour, sustained with 997 millibars. So central pressure has come down a bit, and there's all the spaghetti tracks, bringing that a lot further west than forecast earlier this week. So coming into Texas, and some of the tracks bringing that all the way up to Tyler and almost Dallas there. I'll pick out a few of these dots here in AP11, so that's going to be one of the ensembles there. EC European model there, one of the ensembles. So yeah, a few of the European models looks like they're ranging that maybe a little bit further west. And of course NHC's forecast bringing that right up around Beaumont and briefly into far east Texas, and then up like that. So pretty close to the center of all these tracks here. And looks like a pretty coherent long-range track over Kentucky and Tennessee for the weekend, and then that gets swept up pretty quickly by the prevailing westerlies. And then our other system down there around Venezuela, Tropical Storm Brett, continuing to move west. I didn't check the central pressure on that, but we'll bring that up a little bit later. Still forecasting that to come out into the Caribbean, and I'm not sure what the prospects for intensification are. Haven't really looked at the environment, but that this would be a concern for recurvature back up into the southern U.S. Kind of unusual, pretty early start to the tropical season here. Normally we don't see this going until late July. Okay, over to our other charts here. In fact, before I continue, let me see if they've got a long-range path on Brett, and no, I don't see any long remnants of Brett dissipated 5 o'clock. Okay, I guess we'll have to give it a funeral there. Okay, must have had some shear going on down in that region. Okay, there's our system there on the rapid refresh model there, combined with the SPC Mesoscale Analysis. Pretty much south of Louisiana. Got a pretty good precipitation field coming out ahead of that. So a lot of rain coming down in the New Orleans area, Gulfport, and just south of Birmingham. And then up in Kansas, looks like we've got a few severe thunderstorms out in that area. There's a slight risk out for western Kansas out in this region. And you can see we've got a little bit of southerly flow feeding that, about 10 knots out of the south. 850 millibar flow. Showing some pretty decent storm relative inflow. Of course, I'm looking strictly at ground here, but I'm assuming the storms are not drifting to the north very much. So we're seeing 20 knots out of the south here at 850. And we'll probably continue seeing this moving to the southeast or to the east, depending on what the shear vectors are. Yeah, there's a slight risk there for Kansas. Storms all the way down to Arizona. That's because all the intense heating there in Arizona, Utah, and Nevada, it's getting a little bit of a monsoon circulation going. So we're getting a component of wind from Texas towards Arizona there, bringing the dry line and the moisture eastward. See if we can bring that up real quick. This is not the current data, so let me update that here. Okay, current plots. 118 degrees there at Phoenix, 122 at Needles right now, and 114 in North Las Vegas. So pretty warm out there. And as we go eastward, looks like we pick up some higher dew points. You can see 52 there at Deming, 44 at Las Cruces, 40 at El Paso. So the moisture is sneaking westward. Safford, 42 there with a thunderstorm. So that contrasts pretty sharply with the 30s and 20s, and even the 12s there at Needles, out further to the west. Okay, out in Texas, let's see here. What do we got going on? Pan this off to the south and kind of want to see what the dry line is doing. And we do see the 50s dew points flowing well out to the west there. Let me get this centered here. So we draw our 50-degree isodrosotherm, and there's 50. And there's another little area 50 right there, and then the 40 is going all the way back into Arizona like that. So you can see that moisture working all the way back to the west. We may have a little bit of a dry line in Texas, maybe right here, but there's obviously a lot of moisture crossing that, and again, that's due to that monsoon circulation. Then here in Texas, we've had drier flow coming up from the northeast. So that circulation there in the Gulf, we definitely don't have an onshore component to the flow here. So we're not bringing moisture up. If anything, we're drying it off a bit. So you can see we're down to 61 there at Fort Worth. And still hanging on to 70 there at Austin, but elsewhere across Texas, lots of 60s and a few lower 70s. Then over in New Orleans, you can see they're getting the effects of that rain. A few gusts up to 34 knots right there. So 34. And I'll tell you the trick to convert that to miles an hour. The conversion factor is 1.15. So what you do is you take that 34 and shift the decimal place over, and you get 3.4. Okay, so you stick that in your memory right there. Now, cut that in half again. So half 3.4, that's going to be about 1.7 or so. So you add 3.4 to 1.7. So it's going to be about 5. And then you add that to the 34 there. That's 39. So that's the speed in miles per hour, 39 miles an hour. And that's the way we convert knots to miles an hour. One of the tricks I learned there in Air Weather Service there. Okay, back to the other charts here, 500 millibars, showing that we've got height anomalies picking up pretty good out here in the desert southwest. So the main polar front jet well up to the north in Kansas, and then where we have a pressure or a height anomaly in the Great Lakes area, jet coming south through the Chicago area out to New Orleans. And there's the high pressure there over the desert southwest, and we'll take a look at that on the other charts where that's centered. In fact, I guess we can do that right now. Get this out of the way. I'm going to go over to the GFS and look at the 200 millibar plot. Okay, that's today's plot right there. So we can see that the upper level high pretty much centered right there on Yuma and Phoenix. So that's a reflection there of the strong thermal low that we have there. It's a warm core thermal low, which means if we look at the, let me see if I can bring up a blank diagram here. So if this is the ground, we're going to have low pressure. So what I'm doing is here I'm drawing a cross section, and this is a height contour here. So you can see there's low heights, low pressure there in the center near this warm core where we have very strong heating. And then gradually what happens is that this is a very dense air, or very hot air mass, so the density is kind of low. So that means eventually you start stacking the heights up to where it translates to a high pressure area loft, and that's what we're seeing right there. So high aloft, low pressure at the surface, that's a barotropic warm core system. And that's basically what we have out there in the desert Southwest right now. Okay, back to the other charts here. There's the 250 millibar analysis showing the high pressure and the ridging out over the west coast, and that puts Texas and the Great Plains under northerly flow. And then for 700 millibars, 500 millibars, I'm going to have to go back to the GFS for that. There's 500 millibars right there showing the high pressure aloft. That's the warm core system there over Arizona. Jet located well to the north. The coloring here is temperature, so the jet kind of falls right in between the temperature gradient and within the pressure gradient too, within the pressure and height gradient. And there's our system shown as low pressure there at 500 millibars, so we don't start seeing the high pressure to very high levels of the tropopause or troposphere. So that's going to be up at 40,000, 50,000 feet, where that's going to show a high aloft. But right now, up at 500 millibars, low pressure there. There's 700 millibars. So we got high pressure out over Arizona. And this 700 millibar level kind of drives the capping, and we see warm air advection coming out of the desert Southwest over Colorado and Wyoming. So we're seeing a little bit of the capping spreading out over Colorado and western Kansas, but not enough to keep the thunderstorms down. And then you can see the capping is reduced here in Texas, where we have the northeasterly flow. We're under the effects of the system out in the Gulf, in between that and the warm core system out in the desert Southwest, and that puts us under a northerly component. Okay, so that's the upper level chart sequence, and maybe this is a good time to look at the satellite data. So this is the GO-16 there, and we can see the monsoon storms in full effect from New Mexico out to Arizona. So all the way from Safford out to Truth or Consequences and up to about Tucson, we've got storms going there, and we can see the anvils spreading out across the high plains. You can see a few towers here in Palo Duro Canyon where they've tried to go up earlier today. And like I said, there's kind of a weak dry line out in this area, most of the moisture spreading past that. But we'll take a look at the Amarillo sounding and see what's going on there. And there's our system out in the Gulf. Things are getting dark there, getting towards the end of the day, but you can see the effects of all the dry advection coming into the backside of that system, and the surface low is out in this area right around here somewhere. And pretty good storms out ahead of the system out to the north. You can see this one really good overshooting top. It's about maybe 50 miles south of New Orleans there. And a few other towers showing up here or there. And then the water vapor imagery clearly shows the effects of that dry air advection entrainment into the back of the system. And there's that one convective cell south of New Orleans there. There's a look at the tropical system there, Cindy, out earlier today. This was about noon, and we can kind of see the center of the circulation there. Not very well filled in with convection. So that's not a very good sign of a strong system. But nevertheless, we will see it continue to drift westward. And here's the thickness analysis. This is just showing us we got a little bit of a cold front across the east coast right there. Looks like a warm front there in northern Kansas coming up to Montana. And then it looks like we pick up the other side of the system there in Oregon up to northern California. So north of that, that's the frontal zone right up there, up in Washington to Alberta to the Dakotas, and the main polar air mass over the Gulf of Alaska right there. You can kind of see the effects of the strong heating in the Alaskan interior there. See the higher thickness values up there, and even some air mass thunderstorms going in that region. I wonder if we can bring up those temperatures. Let me go up to the north there and see what's going on. We'll see if I can shift that map up a little further north. Sometimes I'm a little bit curious what's going on up there in the northern regions, because that tends to be forgotten by us forecasters in the lower 48, you know. You never see Alaska on the Weather Channel. But, yeah, 70s, that's fairly warm for this time of year, and you can see dew points in the 50s. And we had that severe thunderstorm warning earlier a couple days ago. We were following that, and 50s dew points up in that area. That's certainly enough to get some showers and storms going in that region. 72 and 77 over the Northwest Territories here. Pretty warm there. And then I was trying to take a look over in Russia, but we would have to pull up synoptic data to see what's going on there. Maybe I can do that really quickly. Okay, bringing in a little synoptic data here. Because once you get over to Russia, they are a more old-fashioned weather network, and they're more dependent on synoptic data. And once we plot that, then that fills in with the additional observations, and we can see pretty seasonable weather, 65 here inland, but otherwise fairly mild conditions up there. Okay, back to our maps. We'll take a look at a couple soundings, and I think a good one to look at would be Tucson. And this is the conditions this morning there at 12Z. Pretty surprising. It's a very weak radiational inversion. Not very much cooling overnight there. And you can see the very steep lapse right there from the surface on up to 500 millibars. So we're showing kind of an inverted V profile. Now sometimes if we have an upper level low moving over the system, you'll develop some high-based showers where the moisture and temperature are very close together. So if our temperature profile is a little bit more like this, then if we drew our LCL, that would certainly sustain some upper level CAPE in that region. And due to the fact that the dry bulb temperatures are very low, we would see strong downbursts from these storms. And that's often what we see in Denver this time of year, and also sometimes in Phoenix later in July and August. These inverted V profiles, those are very favorable for microbursts and that kind of thing out in the desert regions. Then a quick look at Edwards. Well, Edwards very dry there. They've got a little bit of a cap. Looks like a pretty good cool layer there. I know they did warm up to like 106 today, but I wonder, yeah, you can see that northeast or that northwest trajectory there. They've probably brought in a little bit of cooler marine air inland, maybe kind of worked its way gradually eastward. And this is Las Vegas here at 12Z, again showing a very steep lapse rate. And I wonder if we have the 0Z data. That might be pretty interesting there. Okay, yeah. There's Las Vegas there. You can see the temperature off the chart there. Lower part of the sounding off the chart, and you do see a little bit of that mid-level humidity there, so probably a little bit of altocumulus there, up about 15 to 20,000 feet. Theta E's not high enough to get any showers going. And we'll take a look at Tucson also. Tucson also off the charts there, a little more humid in the mid-levels, but again, not enough to support high-based showers. And then moving back to Texas, we'll go to Fort Worth. And there we see a little bit of that northerly flow aloft there, and then the chart itself showing a little bit of moisture there, kind of suppressed, dampened a little bit. And then that gives us a very cool parcel and not enough to break all of this warm air here at 600 millibars. So yeah, we actually do have a little bit of capping here in the atmosphere, and it probably worked its way out from Colorado over the span of maybe several days, and gradually kind of slipped underneath the ridge there, and that's probably what we're seeing here right now. Okay, there's a quick look at the dynamics, what we have going on here. In fact, let me advance this to 0Z. And we can see 500 millibar high pretty much centered over Phoenix there. Texas under this northerly flow. And then the stronger dynamics are confined to the Great Lakes and Canada up there. There's our system out there in the Gulf starting to show up there. Okay, so I think that brings us to the forecast. I'll do our little mesoscale forecast here based on the high-resolution rapid refresh. Yeah, it's going for a little MCS moving southeastward overnight into the northern Oklahoma area around Woodward. And then that's gone just after dawn. And then tomorrow we're left with this low pressure area, a little bit of a heat low over Colorado and the North Platte area. So the southern plains are going to be under a southerly gradient. That's going to continue bringing a little bit of moisture northward, but again, the tropical air mass out over Texas has been kind of disrupted by that system out in the Gulf. Okay, let's see here. Taking a look at chat. I did get another donation. I saw that come across from Justin Pulliam there. I appreciate that. So that did come in. Eddie W. saying hello, and Sue M. says sunny weather there, rain overnight. Justin Pulliam is visiting family over a long weekend. Looks like half a day of webcast to catch up on. Lloyd McCarter watching several areas developing, hot, clear, and humid in North Little Rock. Burl H. joining, and Ryan there. Good chat. Nice to find out dry and sunshine finally for Florida there. Alexi joined earlier, and Kevin McKinney also joined. And Robert Terrell, David Holcomb, Jumping Flash, got action in the Gulf. RIKL, heat wave in the UK. Yeah, let's bring up the UK. I mean, we're not limited to the US here, so when there's unusual weather, I want to certainly hear about that. So let's bring that up. We've already got the synoptic data loaded in, so all we have to do is generate the chart here. So let me set up our parameters for Europe. And we don't often look at Europe because usually when I look at the weather there, there's really not a whole lot going on. But you'd be surprised, they do get squall lines and stuff like there. When I lived in Germany, that was the first major severe weather I saw, and that's what got me interested in weather. There was a squall line that came up from France. This was in July, back in the 70s, and it moved northeastward into Germany, and it had a really impressive Arcus cloud. We went from clear skies to this Arcus cloud just coming at us from the southwest, and then once it was up on us, we got buried in hail, like a bunch of pea-sized hail. So that left quite an impression on me, and that's how I got interested in weather. Went to the adult section of the library and checked out the weather books that they had, and by the time I was 13, I was plotting scutees. I went down to the weather station there, and I'd been reading up on how to do that, and they were a little bit impressed there. Okay, 66 there in the UK right now, but it is 3 a.m., so that is some pretty warm weather. Actually, these are midnight conditions, but 65 overnight, yeah, with a 60 humidity, and they don't have air conditioning in most of the houses there. One time I went on Amazon.uk to look at what was available for air conditioners, and they had like maybe 3 units available, and they cost about $500 or $600 for like a very basic one that would sell here at Home Depot for about $150. So yeah, not too many people would be enjoying this kind of weather. But just looking at this, I'm sure we had a lot of 80s across the UK earlier, and wow, look at this in France. 70s at midnight. So now I'm a little bit curious. I want to see what happened earlier. Okay, let's see. Max heating, that would be 18Z, maybe 15 to 18Z. Oops. Let's see here. 20th at 18Z. Let me bring that up real quick, and we'll see what things we're doing earlier today. Okay, yeah, lots of 90s in France. Lots of 90s. Then we go up to England and see 80s. 84 there at Fairford, and 82. I guess I'm not too familiar. I guess this is Plymouth down here. But yeah, lots of 80s in the west part of the country, and the I guess maybe around up to the Midlands maybe. And it looks like maybe the effects of the sea breeze maybe coming inland a bit here. And maybe just general cool air advection under easterly flow there. Easterly pressure gradient probably, just bringing in cool air there from the North Sea. And then trajectories in the southwest, that looks like it's coming more from across the channel there. 84, 87 there at Luxembourg, and I'm just taking a quick look around at Russia and Sweden. Pretty cool, 50s. And then typical 80s in Italy. So yeah, most of the hot weather there is centered on North France, and you can see that gap there in Germany where they've changed over to buffer data. So that's what I'm working on for digital atmosphere, trying to get that sorted out. Okay, Justin Pulliam found good alternatives for soundings, and Eddie Holmes joining. Michael Burrell says a lot of flooding in Georgia, even in his neighborhood town, very soaked. And Lloyd reporting the audio good there earlier. Amazed the storm in the Gulf remaining stationary there from Ryan. Saw the Facebook post I made about planes being unable to fly there. Yeah, they're limited to ISA plus 35, the Bombardier airplanes. So once it's 118 or above, they are not able to fly there. Okay. Justin says downloading the aerial pictures, trashing the stream. Okay, so we'll be careful on that. Okay, so we're going to have to watch that. Looks like a lot of rain potentially from Cindy. Good, yeah, you know, reading this chat here, having this all steady there, that's probably helping the buffering to catch up there. 91 degrees there, Canyon Lake from Ancient Astronaut. Carl joining Louisiana, expecting 9 to 11 inches out of the storm. Mike Estwick is here with 99 in Denver. Mike is wondering how much trouble the planes are having getting out of there. I did see a lot of cancellations there. I don't know which airline that was. Someone baked cookies on the dashboard in their car in Phoenix. Okay. Unreal heat. Southwest is canceled. Delayed flights. Okay, Southwest affected there. Thomas Fortner says hello from Tennessee. Long road trip. Beautiful sunset with gravity waves. Ryan says the tarmac is unstable there and the airplane's not able to handle the heat. He says the tires will burst as well. Carl says truth or consequences. Responding to somebody else. I lost the discussion there. New jets take off with reduced power. They try to avoid 100% power these days. Yeah, they do the derated takeoffs. Definitely to avoid wear and tear on the engines. It's actually normal there, so when you hear people talking about really long takeoff rolls and they think the plane is really heavy, those are actually derated takeoffs, and they're just making the maximum use of the runway by not wearing down the engine. So a little bit of aviation trivia there. Sue M. notices a YouTube channel in Alaska there that she follows 80 degrees in Fairbanks, and they were dying of the heat. Ryan says the heat will cause further problems as the summer moves on. Yeah, this is very early to have temperatures this high around the country. That's true. Although back in 1990, that heat wave was June 26th. It was right around this time. And usually as the monsoon starts moving to Arizona, that kind of breaks up the heat in that region. But yeah, we may see problems here in Texas, although the seasonal forecast in Texas is for above normal rainfall here. So I think we're going to probably have a lot of tropical air making it into this region rather than air from the desert southwest. Comfortable weather there where Mike Bexley is in Ohio. It's a good reason to live in Ohio. I'm sure the winters there aren't very great. Buffering sorted itself out. Wildfires in Portugal. Yeah, I saw a little bit of that on the news. I heard about the plane crash there. The stream was bad when we were looking at the tropical storm tracks. Okay, yeah, so Google Earth was eating up bandwidth. That's good to know. Temperatures aren't unprecedented there in the UK, but Atlantic normally sees their warmest weather coming later in the summer. Where was I in Germany? I was in the Kaiserslautern area. Mike Bexley says he was in Ramstein in the early and mid-60s, and yeah, I was not even around in those years, but we lived on in one of the towns on the ridge out to the south of Ramstein, one of the farming towns, and all my friends there were actually living in the town. I'm not too sure what their dads did. I know a lot of them were into farming, but others probably had jobs out in Kaiserslautern, that kind of thing. And yeah, we got lots of snow there, and every single Christmas we started having snow falling when I was there, so that kind of made things really neat there. It was always white by Christmas morning, so some good memories there. Okay, we'll look at the forecast here, looking at I guess we'll look at the GFS. Let me see what charts I have. We'll look at the dew point chart. We'll look at the GFS. And pretty much all the purple that you see here, these are surface dew points of around 70. And you can see the impact that the dry air has had around the margins of that moisture there. Okay, so for tomorrow, 12Z, you can see a little bit of ridging into Texas right there. The flow is starting to come out from the north in Texas. So we're starting to pick up north winds in response to that system coming inland. So that'll be approaching the Texas coast on Wednesday very slowly. And GFS going for landfall very similar to where NHC is calling. Maybe a tiny bit east of there. And you can kind of see the 70s dew points kind of wrapped up in the system. So it looks like it hasn't been totally decimated by dry air. And we'll check the other charts and see where the rain bands are going to be on that. Okay, then later in the week for Friday, this is Thursday's webcast, we're going to see the circulation across East Texas, probably in our area. So I'll have some of the camera views outside for us to check out. Out to the west looks like a thermal low out over the high plains. So right in between there, a little bit of a ridge in Texas. Very shallow southerly flow feeding the thermal ridge there, so it looks like the thunderstorm activity on western Kansas will die down a bit. And then looks like we've got some pretty strong westerly flow there in Arkansas, Arizona, so probably the heat wave will be breaking up a little bit there. And you can see the low pressure there in Arizona, only 1004 millibars, and I think today it was a lot, it was a little more intense, 1006. No, actually it was about the same. Okay, so moving on to Thursday. Okay, yeah, there's Thursday, and then for Friday, okay, we've got a polar air mass working its way south. Let me go back and see where that is on Thursday. Yeah, that kind of snuck in there. There's the leading edge. Nebraska to western Kansas. So with the reduced southerly component of the flow on the west side of that system, that should help that polar air mass come straight down south. And then we see it by Friday. It looks like maybe it's in the Red River region, like that right there. So I'd probably be expecting maybe precip from the remains of the system all the way into the upslope areas, maybe something like that, kind of where the moisture is pooled. So that'll be the precipitation area, and then maybe some other upslope storms or graphic storms near the nose of this moisture in Santa Fe, Las Vegas, and west of or east of Alamosa there. Then for Saturday, 1025 millibar high across Colorado. That's kind of unseasonably cool for this time of year, or unseasonably strong. Looks like the cold front kind of stalled there in the Red River. So that whole area there, that's going to be a boundary for development, and there's the inflow of moisture. Looks like we're starting to get onshore flow once again for the weekend. Then for Sunday, it looks like that cold air mass finally starts pushing south a bit. Probably more rain in the East Texas area. Then for Monday, pretty stagnant pattern, not much going on. Tuesday, we're just going to be under the effects of these high pressure areas. You see earlier, let me go back. Yeah, you see that high right there over the Panhandle. That's creating a little bit of northerly flow now, so that's going to shut down the Gulf. You can see right there a little bit of confluence in the Gulf. So it looks like that's going to be around Sunday or Monday that the Gulf should start shutting down temporarily. So the best chances for rain are going to be where the nose of the moisture gets redirected, and that's going to be Mexico right here. So definitely some rain in the forecast, I think, for Monterey there early next week. Then let's see, for the end of next week, we start opening up the Gulf again. A few polar systems moving through the northern plains. Another front coming south, and then it moves back up as a warm front here. So probably a little bit of severe weather in the central plains there possible. And then we just get this boundary kind of moving back and forth, looks like, after the July 4th weekend. And the weather we have in Texas later in the period, that's going to depend on where the upper level ridge is. So we can take a look at that real quick. This time of year, we need to look at the upper level charts. because that's definitely part of the pattern here. Okay, so let's see. Let's advance this. Okay, we're looking at the NAM. Okay, I'll try pulling up the GFS. Hopefully this doesn't mess up the webcast. I'm going to let it sit here for just a second, maybe catch up on some of the texts. So I think it's probably loading frames in the background there. Okay, let's see here. Germany was nice back then. Yeah, it was beautiful. My cousin lived in Memmingen. He's the guy that you saw in the webcast earlier this month. So we used to drive back and forth. It was about a 3-hour drive there. And it's good having family in Germany there at the time. A little discussion between Justin and Carl about pivotal weather and some sort of program. College DuPage uses Sharpie. Okay, that's what pivotal weather uses. Happy solstice from Tree Nelson. Summer solstice, I think that's tonight, actually. That's coming up in about 3 hours there. Let me see if I can bring that up. I think Google had that. Yeah, summer solstice. June 20th, 11:24 p.m. Central Time. So we're coming up on that in about 3 hours. Okay, hopefully our data finished coming in here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and take a look at that, 200 millibars. We start out with ridging out to the west, and you can see underneath, that's where the heat wave is. That breaks up a little bit, and we end up with more of a westerly component here, so there's going to be some relief in the desert southwest. Looks like a little bit of, yeah, there's some sort of low pressure. You see this right here? A little bit of cyclonic curvature in the flow. Yeah, that's going to be the upper part of Cindy there as it comes onshore. I think that's what we're seeing there. And then during the week next week, let's see what happens. High pressure in northwest Mexico, way down there. Okay, so hot weather, but that's going to be in northwest Mexico. Looks like prevailing westerlies for Arizona and the Four Corners. Doesn't look too bad here in Texas. In fact, looks like this troughing will help us out for precipitation because it has been getting dry. Then later in the week, looks like, yeah, some ridging starts taking effect around Thursday, Friday. So that'll probably start shutting down the precip. Ridging. Okay, so it's going to be kind of dry later next week. And then getting up to Sunday and Monday, looks like not only do we have ridging, but it looks like we have high pressure here in West Texas. So this may be a little bit of a warm period in West Texas around Sunday the 2nd, maybe into 4th of July weekend. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be hot. Fair and hot weather, so probably good for cooking out. Okay, I think that's about all I got here. Mike Bexley, Tree Nelson talking about some other stuff here. 424 UTC for the solstice. And Alexei mentioning yeah, stuff about Lexi's family. And okay, very good. I think that's about all I got for tonight. Appreciate you joining our webcast, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow. Take care, and have a good evening.